Hi, aligned souls. Welcome to the Soul Revival podcast, where we have meaningful conversations to help you explore tools and healing methods that help you return to your soul self. Join us as we help you merge the ethereal and the material worlds, allowing you to live your most fulfilling and aligned life. I'm Lindsay Stanton, author, somatic practitioner, intuitive Reiki master, and grief coach.
Hello, I am Autumn, a believer in miracles, intuitive guide, and psychic medium. We're your hosts and guides. We don't just talk healing, we live it. This is where soul meets strategy, spirit meets structure, and our highest selves take the mic.
Welcome back to the Soul Revival podcast. Autumn and I are so excited for today's guest. I have had the pleasure of working with Cassandra. I have had the pleasure of witnessing her beautiful energy with women executives. She is absolutely amazing. And if you don't know her, I don't know why. She is phenomenal. And we are so excited to dive into today's conversation. So welcome.
Welcome. I have been looking forward to this conversation, and I know everyone listening is going to love your energy. I felt it on your Instagram page, and I'm just like feeling so blessed and honored. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and share a little about your journey, Cassandra?
Yeah, so I am an actress, author, spiritual life coach. I have been helping women all around the world for probably over a decade now, which started as like a holistic health, mindful eating, body intuition blog back in college and kind of spiraled and grew into something so much bigger than I had ever imagined. And then through my own spiritual awakening journey with my brother ended up getting sick, I really just like opened the doors to what was already kind of something that always interested me, with meditation and yoga. And I was always into, like, since I was little, like astrology and crystals and like all the things. And then when I was 25, which was far too long ago, my little brother got sick, and he's stable now, but he had a really scary prognosis that kind of came out of the blue, and a ton of operations. And it was a really hard few years that really had me fall on my spiritual knees, so to speak. And I heard the guidance towards this work, towards meditation, towards connecting inward, and what started off as a journey to find peace in a really horrible time that I was struggling to rationalize, and navigate, had this like very profound, interesting side effect of also on this, like, making my dreams come true, making all of these like dreams and ambitions and desires in my heart like just show up in my reality in a way that also was like in my logical mind nonsensical.
Hi, loves. If you've been enjoying this podcast and it's added value to your life, we'd be so incredibly grateful if you'd consider supporting us with a small donation. Every contribution helps us create heartfelt conversations and sharing this space with you. Thank you. If you are feeling called to make a donation to the Soul Revival podcast, please scroll down to the show notes and click the link "Support this show" to make your donation. Thank you so much.
When I got to this point where I was like, on a national TV show, had my first book deal, doing all these speaking things, working with incredible clients, feeling like so aligned. I was also an actress at the time too. And so I was like booking these TV shows that I had like, been wanting to book forever. I like the deepest desire in my heart at that moment then became like, I need to teach other women how to do this, because I knew so profoundly that I was not special, and that I didn't have any special connections for sure. And I didn't have anything. I mean, I knew. So then my like obsession became reverse engineering what I did so that I could share with other women, and teach. And that's been like some of my other books, like Manifesting Through Meditation and the Spiritual Awakening Journal. just showing other women like how can we go on this journey together. And now it's really it's a larger spectrum, right? It's like going back and forth between, I really believe that all of it's connected, and our food and our meditation and our self-care and our body's well-being are also connected to what we can achieve in our lives, and the desires we can manifest, because we create this foundation from that. And from that foundation, I say, if we want a skyscraper life, we better have a really good foundation to hold it, right? And so I work on all parts of that level of the skyscraper. And, some clients we're working more on the skyscraper part, and some clients are working more on that foundation part. But I think it all feeds each other. And in a lot of ways, it's all the same.
I love that so much. As we were prepping for the interview, I shared with Autumn that you literally define grounded divine feminine energy. Like, to me, that is like your essence. So your answer just like was so in alignment with that. It's not even funny.
Oh my God. That, it's funny because one of my like things has always been like practical magic, which I'm also like such an astrology geek. And I'm a Pisces sun, which is like the most like kind of mystical, magical, kind of out there kind of, soul essence one could have. But then I'm a Capricorn 10th house and a Capricorn moon, which is the most grounded one that you can have, which I think allows me to kind of filter this kind of like innate, like kind of magic or mysticism through a really like, I'm like, what are the steps? What can I do? Like, let's get an action plan, put it on your Google Calendar, version. So thank you, Lindsay. I feel so seen.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Okay, so we do like to start every podcast episode with the same question. What aligns you to your soul self?
We have an exciting opportunity to share with you.
Did you know inside the Soul Revival community, we have a giveaway? One lovely soul is gifted something sacred. A Reiki session, an intuitive reading, a powerful course, or even access into the community itself. This isn't just a giveaway. It's a soul blessing, a moment where healing meets divine timing. You'll feel the shift, you'll see the signs, and you'll know you're not alone anymore. Say yes to your intuition, your healing, your next chapter. Enter now at the link below in the show notes labeled Soul Revival Giveaway for your chance to win.
Let's get back to today's episode.
Ooh, honestly, I think pain. I think it was pain was the like inciting incident that allowed me to open the door to start talking to my soul self, and getting to that place of really realizing that like the external world didn't have the answers I was looking for, didn't have the solutions I was looking for, that then forced me to go inside. And then I would say like what has continued that connection to the soul self has been a meditation practice and like an ongoing spiritual practice.
Love that. That's the soul revival is based on that energy as well, just that duality energy. Lindsay's definition of the soul revival is such a beautiful one.
Tell me.
So it's the whole aspect of like the sun set and the sun rising all at the same time. I mean, I'm a firm believer. I've lived it similar to you both, that we can, on the back end of grief and trauma, it can be a byproduct of grief and trauma can be huge manifestations and tapping us into what connects us deeper to our soul's purpose. And I'm a firm believer that everybody has a why, And even though it might be difficult to feel and agree with the fact that everything happens for a reason, I do totally know it at a soul level that it all happens for a reason, even when it's hard. And what the challenge is like doing the hard work and uncovering that why for you and understanding how it ties you to your soul's purpose.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I agree. Yeah, I agree completely with that.
So, talk to us. I love your whole sacred structure, which you kind of alluded to at the beginning of the episode. Can you walk us through how you use intuition to guide your sacred structure?
Yeah, so I think sacred structure is what I call, I said, yeah, it's like how you structure your day and your life, and how that structure not only holds you, supports you, and nourishes you, and helps you become happy or be in peace and be in that like nice little flow state. Um, while you're on the way to manifesting and magnetizing, the bigger things that you want for your life. I think with your intuition, how it goes is that I think a lot of us, specifically us who relate to the feminine in this lifetime, we were put into a very masculine type of structure that often didn't allow for our intuition to have a voice in the room, that wasn't acknowledging our unique divine design and what goes through. And so, one of the things that for me I saw was key to my success, but also to my happiness and my sanity, was having a structure that like held me and supported me in all the good ways structures can, but also gave me enough flow and freedom. And part of that is having it might change in different circumstances in life. It might change in different seasons, right? Because we're not, especially as women, but I think all humans, but especially as women, like we're on like a moon cycle. And even if you don't have your period anymore, or you haven't gotten your period yet, you're still connected to the moon, right? You're still on that cycle. And we go through different phases. Man, we're in like 4 different phases every month. And then on top of that, we're feeling like we have the seasonal phases that all of us feel, right? And so connecting with your structure and those things too. But I guess the short of it is how intuition connects with sacred structure is that we're honoring our natural inclinations, which for so long I think like quote unquote productivity gurus or whatever have tried to like brainwash us out of, right? And if, an example of that would be, right, if we're doing a sacred structure, and I love looking at your astrology and your human design and saying, okay, how do these things come together, right? Like what's in your sixth house, right? Your sixth house is your house of day-to-day life. And so if you, depending on what you have in that part of your chart, might depend on like what works for you and what doesn't work for you, how that energy interacts with your sun sign, how that energy interacts with your moon sign. Your moon sign is actually something that's very interesting to look at because it's your emotional groundedness, right? So for me, like I just mentioned, like having a Capricorn moon structure, organization, to-do lists help me feel grounded, right?
I'm
That might,
Taurus moon.
what?
I'm Taurus moon, so same.
Yeah. And also for you though, like comfort, right? Comfort and nourishment is going to be huge for your thing. So like if I'm like designing your sacred structure, I do care how comfortable your office chair is where you're working. I do care that you like Taurus also really likes like I call it like grounded luxury, right? Like you shouldn't be working at like a plastic IKEA desk or whatever, right? That's not gonna vibe for you. It's gonna make you feel unstable.
That is so accurate.
Like you need like a beautiful like oak or like and maybe it has like gold or like metal like fixtures or whatever,
Yep.
but like so it's like things like that, right? It's like looking into those like nuances that are not so like black and white. And then obviously the intuition part is like putting that through your thing. And what then resonates with you, because even in the construct of astrology and human design, I think it's a good place to start. But then it's also like asking you, okay, well, how does that sit with you? How does that resonate with you? Now, just to like riff off of your Taurian thing, right? Like to me, I would be like, okay, like, well, what's your emotional comfort drink, right? Do you have like an emotional comfort drink? Maybe we need to like schedule that in, that you're gonna make that in the morning before you sit down. And you probably want a nice breakfast too, because and not just like a bar. Like I don't foresee someone that has a Taurus moon that's gonna feel like emotionally grounded eating some sort of protein bar, right? You want something nice, maybe warming, maybe something that feels like a treat. Like but then also like running that through the context of like, okay, well, what feels good to you, right? And then even with your day, looking intuitively and being like, when do I feel like I'm in the best space to do whatever that task is? And actually honoring that instead of what people quote unquote say you should do or what we think we should do, right? It's like so many of the masculine like ideas that work for some people and not for everyone are like, wake up at 5 in the morning, do your workout at 5 in the morning or whatever, get this done. And even the structure of like 9 to 5, does that work for you? I would say for a good amount of us, the 9 to 5 structure doesn't work. It's not actually how our energy is flowing. And when you actually tap into a sacred structure that works for you, then you're amazed because you're like, I get done more than people that work 9 to 5 in 3 hours, but the right 3 hours, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so it is. It's about kind of customizing it and then finding a structure that like really feels good to you and your life.
I love that. And I love how you tie in the body and with your nutrition background, like layering in. Cause to me, like, so I've got training in somatics and it's like tying in that piece with your human design and your astrology and like tuning into what your body's trying to tell you, whether it's from a nutrition perspective, whether it's from a resonance perspective on your workflow. I love that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was just talking with a client before this, and we were talking about she's healing from a pretty major health thing, and one of the practices, though, I believe that all of us, should be in flow with in some way, is just tuning into our body every day, and we get so much information from our body, and oftentimes when health stuff flares up in different ways, it does, it's guidance, right? It's trying to show us something, and also, like you said, it's also just like how we feel throughout the day. And I think food was always a big thing for me because I had a lot of like food noise when I was younger. But now as a mom, oh my God, it is like, it's huge because I think even before I was a mom, I will say once like my business really took off and I got really busy and stuff, it was so easy to like just go. I'd be like back to back calls, back to back. Like my husband has this joke with me. He'll be like, "It's back to back," right? And I'm like, "Shut up, okay? It is back to back. Look at my calendar." And but fueling ourselves and nourishing ourselves is so important. And taking that time, I have found it is one, a self-loving gesture, right? It builds that self-love, self-worth, self-trust that you are worthy of taking good care of yourself, that you're worthy of eating whatever it is, right? And like putting that in your day and actually acknowledging not, yes, what's healthy, what's not healthy, but what's going to make you feel good. What are, just like we're doing with all the other elements of your day, right? Saying like, okay, Lindsay, if you have avocado toast in the morning, how do we feel, from like 9 to 12? Like, are we focused? Are we good? Do we feel satiated? Are we still hungry? Are we feeling tired? Do we have a stomach, right? And just being in that conversation so that you can really dial that in to support you.
Be sure to check out the show notes below to see if you're the winner of our giveaway.
And then I think with anything, it's like we create that structure so you feel supported by those things. And of course, we leave the space for the flow of being like, hey, if you wake up and you're like, you know what, I'm going to meet my girlfriend at a coffee shop and, pick out whatever looks good to me there, then like that's fine too. But we create these kind of like the scaffolding to like hold the building so that like the building stays.
I love that.
I find it so unique what you're doing, the container you're holding, because we're each our own temples, right? Like we each have divine feminine, but each one of us is so unique. And looking at the energetic blueprints of each individual to see what works with their temple is very magical, and it's needed in this world. I feel the divine feminine is on a rise. It's honoring ourselves and healing from the inside out, and people don't know where to start. And I feel like you have the blueprint to bring it all together under one umbrella, and that's so magical.
Thank you. Thank you.
Talk to us. So I know my background with you is largely around manifestation. So do you have any like manifestation hacks that you'd like to share? Obviously, I feel like structure relates directly to manifestation because having that sacred structure that you mentioned kind of helps us like be in flow and recognize and it like connects to gratitude practice, all the things like you said, they all layer together. But any like special hacks that you found particularly helpful?
Yeah, well, so I feel like the birth of this structure was part of the like, reverse engineering of manifestation in that way, right? Is what I found is one of my favorite like oldest kind of meditation things to do myself or with clients or whatnot. Or yeah, it's one of my go-tos is just allowing yourself to get really clear on like what your desires are, what the things we want to manifest in a meditation, right? And then you're there, you're in that space, you're in your heart space, you're like, these are the most important things right now and where I'm at in my life that I want to see happen. And then guide them along a journey of, okay, so all of that has happened. Check, 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 check. It's all happened. We're in your bed, you're waking up in the morning. How does the morning go? What are you drinking? What are you eating? What's your spiritual practice in this form of your life? How do you interact with your husband if you have a husband, or do you have a dog, or whatever it is, and just guiding them through like a regular day in the life. Because I honestly think that's the biggest manifestation hack, and on the contrary, like the biggest like way people kind of like miss the mark, I guess, is that the we see this life that has whatever the thing is we want to manifest as like so different from like our life that we have here. And we think to ourselves, well, when I have $1 million, when I have that job, when I have the husband, when I have whatever it is, the beachfront house in Malibu, whatever it is, like when I have that, well, then everything's going to be changing, right? But the cosmic joke of it all is that actually when you have that, and that's why I think that practice of like actually like going through a day in the life, because it's pretty funny, and I love seeing like the clients' faces sometimes when we do this, because I'll be like, okay, so we have all these things. Let's go through the itemized of the day and like what happened. And I'm like, okay, so like 97% of this we can institute right now. And the 3% is going to come its way because you just did the 97. So the 3% is just what, $1 million, not a big deal, right? But what happens is that we hear sometimes in like pop culture spirituality, I'll call it, like just believe, just know it's yours, right? And like, I mean, God bless if that like if that is like works for some people, right? And they can just like decide to believe, like, great. I mean, I think we all have like a spectrum of things that we can just decide to believe, and we have the ability for that. And then other things that maybe we have never had anything close to, or have anybody in our life that have had, that feel like a little bit harder. And there's obviously, like, I think in not hacking terms or whatnot, more longer terms, like things I would do with clients would be working through all the fears and the doubts and the beliefs, and like healing that around why they can't have it, and using, you know, like you were saying, like somatic practices, releasing it from the body, getting it out in all those ways. But I actually think it is actually a hack that helps you shift, because when you get into that space, and whether you journal, or I recommend like meditating, and I like to like guide people through it. There's like a YouTube meditation for free that you can listen to that I have around it. It's called Inner Rockstar, and it guides you through the whole day, and then just journaling out like exactly what you did that day. And it asks you to be so specific, like what's on your nightstand, what did you eat for breakfast, like how, like what clothes did you put on, how did you get ready, right? Writing all that out, and then just getting into action of like, how can I change as many of those things as possible?
Are you or someone you know going through a huge spiritual expansion? Are you looking for a safe space, a community to help you with that expansion, helping you learn new healing modalities, helping you to grow along your journey and connect you to spirit, the angels, your loved ones on the other side? Then we have an amazing offer for you. In light of the holidays being right around the corner, the Soul Revival is doing a special membership offer where you buy 6 months membership, gets 6 months free. Or if you'd like to gift a membership, you can buy a membership for yourself and get a membership for a loved one for free. That's up to a $1,300 value just to help you heal. We hope to see you there.
Right? Because some of it will be like, you know, you wake up and you're like, oh, I have like a coconut candle on my nightstand, right? It's like, great, go to Target, buy a coconut candle, have it be on your nightstand. I want you to wake up and have that smell, right? Buy a non-toxic coconut candle with essential oils, please, though, because otherwise it will probably give you an allergic reaction. Um,
That is hilarious.
like caveat. But the idea is that it could be that simple, right? Because then what I call that is an anchor moment, right? We have these little anchors that we associate with our future self. And if we and the more we can meet those anchors and we can incorporate them in the day, if you have this vision where like every time you're imagining your like CEO self, and she is wearing like a blue and white striped button down and red lipstick or whatever, right? If you don't own it, buy it and start wearing it, right? And again, like, you don't have to spend a lot of money. Like, go to Target, go to secondhand shop. It's not about like buying a ton of things. It's about, I want you to look in the mirror and see that version of yourself that's like already making $1 million, already married, already has a baby, or whatever the thing is you want, right? If you're trying to release excess weight or heal a health condition, and you see yourself in your thing taking an Epsom salt bath every day, or going on a long walk in a nature path, put it on your calendar. Do it on a regular basis, right? Have these moments where you bring that vision that you have of your ideal life into this grounded reality. And then you can even get more creative with it. Like, I tell my clients, I work with a lot of people that are coaches and have different like coaches business on the transition from their like corporate job to having clients that are full-time there. And one of the things I always say is that, like, as we're doing this, put in your calendar, when do you see yourself talking to clients? And I want you to schedule out those blocks. I want nothing else in those blocks. When you're in those blocks, you are doing something that is in the essence of talking to clients. And so whether that is literally like, sending Reiki to different people in your life, like as if they were clients, because that's what you were going to be doing, great, do that. If that's you going in front of, your cell phone camera and recording videos of, real advice that you would say to a client just starting out with whatever you're doing, working on, or whatever your sphere of excellence is, do that. Like that is a space. If that's you going on to, I don't know, like forums online and answering people's questions in, that thing, that's your client time. There are so many ways to be in the energy of that thing, the essence of that desire during that scheduled time. And those, I think, are the most lightning fast hacks, where the goal is to spend more of your day in the energy of the vision of you that you're manifesting than not. Because what happens is, as you start doing it, something happens like below the surface that actually doesn't feel like heavy, or doesn't feel like a lot of work. You all of a sudden are like, wow, I wake up, I go for a run, I drink my green tea, I'm wearing my button down or whatnot. And then, I go to a coffee shop and work for whatever, 3 hours on the book that I'm writing or whatever it is, right? And you don't have an agent, and you don't have a publisher, and you have no idea how this book is ever going to come to be. But this is the vision that you had of yourself when you saw yourself signing autographs at the bookshop or whatever, right? And what happens is, like, the more you do that, you build up this level of genuine, grounded, authentic belief that that's totally possible. Like, it's totally possible. And then before you know it, you're like, someone asks you what you do, and you're like, oh, I'm an author, I'm writing a book. And it feels real because you are doing it. Even if it's not yet the like perfect, Barnes and Noble, whatever thing, like you're in that energy of it. And so it will be. It will be. And that, I think, is like one of the biggest manifestation hacks, is that you need to spend time bringing your current reality, and that's obviously ties into the sacred structure, and that's part of it, right? Is so many people, I think, are waiting for something else to like flip a switch and change their life. And they're associating like all the things that don't feel good about their life with just not having like one thing. I'm like, that's BS. That's like total BS, because if there's there's a way that we get to, and the most magnetic thing, even just in general magnetism, the most magnetic thing you can do is create a day and a life that helps you feel good, right? That helps you be happy. So I often say, I'm not one of those manifestation teachers that feels like you should you always have to burn the boat to take the island, so to speak, that you have to like quit your job and like put yourself in a scary position. I don't believe in that. I think we actually manifest.
That's fear-based energy, by the way.
What?
I don't believe in that either. It's fear-based energy.
It's very like black and white. And also we manifest better from like a happy, joy, nervous system, right? So I'm always like, okay, well, if you need to pay rent, you need to pay rent. So let's just find a job that doesn't stress you out. Let's find a job that you could be like, I know 100%. I could tell you right now, I know 100% that like, being like a barista or a bakery shop owner or like a bookshop owner is not like my soul's highest purpose. However, I could tell you all three of those jobs I could have fun at. They're environments that I like. I love coffee. I love being in coffee shops. I love bookshops. I love books, right? I'll talk to people about books all day. Those were jobs that when I was like starting my business, I leaned on that. I worked at a bakery too. I also love so I found it so soothing. I wasn't like, I think there's also like a piece in some of the things that, when we're manifesting something, we can, like you were saying, Lindsay, like get into like a fear-based mode feel like, oh my God, if I do this thing that's like not the thing, maybe I'm telling the universe that I don't want the thing. No,
No.
no one
Yeah.
is confused here. Like, you know what you want, and also, like, thanks for being like a human on earth and like having to do the thing that you have to do, right? And finding a way to do it in joy. And so I think the more that we can align our day to day life with things that bring us joy in like little and small ways, which is like probably like been like my biggest passion. And I don't know when that will manifest in like my work or whatnot, but like I am like I have to update my like bookshelf behind me because it's been bothering me for the past couple weeks. But this is how I am. I'm so energetically sensitive to everything. Where like my house is very aesthetic. Like everything is very conscious, right? And even when like, you know, I'm literally just making dinner for me and my husband who really would eat like a pile of slop as long as it's edible. Like I try to make it really pretty because for me that matters, right? And it's like having these little anchors in our day, they do matter. Wearing something, and I don't believe it necessarily, it has to be expensive. It could be whatever. It could be like something you got at like a girlfriend swap meet or whatever, but like something that like feels like you, that you like how it feels on you. I think these like really simple things are sometimes the biggest manifestation hacks because I was actually talking about one of my best friends is Sahara Rose, which I don't know if any of you guys, you know, if you've heard of her, you listen to her podcast.
It's
Um,
amazing.
we talk about this all the time that like the biggest things that have happened in our life that have been like game changing life, you know, up leveling kind of things always just happen when we were happy.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like just like happy living our life and not necessarily like maybe we had like I call it kind of like it was like floating in the ethers, right? We were like that'd be cool someday. I would like to do that, right? Like it was aware in our consciousness, but we weren't like we weren't so aware that we were in the pain of not having it.
Yeah.
And we were just like living in the joy of the moment and then something comes in and so I do believe that that's also a huge manifestation hack that sometimes if you get so you know in the weeds of trying to like make something happen we
Hyper
forget to
focus.
have fun and we forget to like be in the magic and be in the mysticism of life and be in the like earthly pleasures um and I think you know we touched on this in the beginning, but sorry, I'll clearly like yap on forever. Um,
I love it.
I think grief and mortality are also this is like one of the big gifts of grief and awareness of mortality.
1000%, 1000%. And I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying in regards to manifestation because I think what you described to me, like I'm an athlete and I ran competitively in college and things, and I know we would always like visualize every detail of a race. And so I think what you just took us all back to is you didn't visualize the finish line, you visualized the whole race. And the anchors are the mile markers along that way. And I firmly believe that we are actually energetically training the cells in our body to be in a higher vibration that is akin to gratitude, because I don't think we need to necessarily be in the highest joy state to manifest huge things like you were just mentioning with yourself and Sahara. But when we're grateful and we're anchored in the energy of gratitude and we're just present in that energy, I feel like that starts to shift the cells and up level the cells in our body that connects us to the universe source that allows the pathway to shorten and collapse time around what's available to us.
Oh, absolutely. And I would even take it like a step lower than gratitude, honestly. I think peace, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, not
yeah.
that like gratitude and joy, yes, let's aim for that for sure. But like, I honestly think it's, you know, being in that space of just being, I think we've all had days like this, hopefully, you know, sometimes more than others, right? But like, when you just have days where you're just kind of like in the flow, right? where you might not even like clock it as I was extra grateful or I was extra joyful or maybe you wouldn't even clock it as at peace, but I feel like peace is like the closest like adjective I can think of, where you're just kind of like, oh, this is pleasant, right? Where you're just like, it's like kind of that like Sunday morning. If you like coffee, you have like a good cup of coffee. You know, the sun is rising. Your dog's being, you know, cuddly and like not doing anything crazy or whatever. And there's just like, oh, well, okay, this is pretty nice, you know? And you know, you're not gonna like, probably not gonna Instagram post about it or, you know, whatever. It's not like maybe the most notable moment, but you're just like flowing. And I think that is this like, it's kind of this like ultimate state of non resistance,
Yeah.
right?
Good
Where we
question.
are. Like
Yeah.
then like we magnetize stuff in that state because we're just like getting out of the way, which is so much of the thing sometimes, you know.
I like how you stated, embodying the emotions of what you are trying to bring in, because like Lindsay had stated, our bodies will begin to magnetize towards that energy of embodiment. What's one manifestation in your life that felt so undeniably proof of the universe conspiring in your favor?
Oh my,
Probably so many, right?
I know. I'm like, which one? Which one? I mean, do you guys want a personal one or a professional one?
Personal.
Yeah, personal.
Personal.
Well, I think, you know, my, do you want my husband or my baby?
I was expecting you to say your son.
um, with Hudson, my son, we were trying for a year and a half before before I got pregnant, and you know, I knew I was blocking it. I've done this work long enough, right, where I knew I was blocking it, and I had a lot of I was just nervous. Like I was nervous to be a mom. I was like, I think I ultimately, now that I know it was on the other side of it, I think on some level I felt how life altering it would be on the other side and how I would move through this whole like kind of death and rebirth and all that stuff. And I think part of me was like, oh, do I want to? I've been through so much already, you know, like, do I want to do it? And so we were like doing all the earthly things that they tell you to do. And I was taking my supplements and, you know, watching, you know, what I was eating and all doing all those things. But I knew in my heart, like energetically, I wasn't really, really open, you know? And so when I finally got to a point, I think like after a year, you know, because then people are like, oh, is everything okay? And I'm like, oh, okay. I gotta like sit with myself and be like, okay, do we really want this? Like, do we want this? Um, and yeah, so I had to have that conversation with myself, and I did the work on like I just like I would tell a client to do, where I was like daily clearing my fears and clearing like all these like resistance that I had to like what would be next and how is my work going to handle this and how are we going to do things. And I did both, like the energetic and the practical, where I like had conversations with my husband. How are we going to run childcare? What's like it look like, you know, for my business? I started like reorganizing things in my business for like how am I going to make this work, you know, all the jazz. And then after that, so then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I was on a business trip in Barcelona. And this is actually funny because I just mentioned her, but I'd planned to be in London for a week later with Sahara. And like the day before I was going to London, she called me and she had like someone broke into her flat and it was crazy. And anyway, so she was like, I just need to go home. Like, I feel so, and I was like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm fine. You know, I can putz around in London for a week, you know? And, so all of a sudden I had this week alone in London and I was like, how interesting. And I immediately heard you got to go to Glastonbury, which I love. Glastonbury is like this super magical, place where the ley lines, the Mary and Michael ley lines meet. And it also has like a lot of connection to what, you know, they called Avalon, and like the Lady of the Lake and the priestesses, just a very like energetically magical place. And I had been there once before, but I felt called on this special trip that I had not planned on going. I already had my hotel booked at Soho House and like had all my London stuff I was just gonna do. But I was like, nope, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take a 4-hour like bus ride. Like it's like one of those like, you know, like $25 buses where you're just on it with like a ton of people, but it's like the only way you get there without renting a car. And I was nervous to rent a car. And so anyway, I'm doing it. I find this like Airbnb. I'm like, you know, whatever. And that trip to Avalon, I knew that trip was me. It was essentially like my surrender to the goddess, that I was like ready to hold child. And so I did, you know, I did the chalice well and the white fountain where they have essentially the Michael and Mary ley lines, and you like initiate yourself, and you go into these like pools, and did the whole 9. And I really just held in my heart that whole time, like every night, like before I went to bed, like I would envision myself like pregnant, like with child, like feeling it. And I felt it, and I had felt him for a while, like in and out. I felt me being pregnant, and and then it was crazy because as I was there, I kept getting these little signs. Like anytime, like, you know, I'm the kind of person that if there's like a free like oracle deck in the gift shop that you can pull a card, I'm pulling the card, you know? So like every time I would pull a card, and there would always be like these images. Every card I pulled, and these were not like mother or pregnancy decks, there would always be a mother and a baby or someone with a swollen belly. And I was like, God, if you are messing with me, this is not funny, right? This is not funny. And so I just kept on getting these messages of like, okay, like he's on his way, he's on his way, he's on his way. And so that chapter, I did that. I was feeling good when I left. And then it was, you know, I had this appointment with my OB, and I was like, okay, like we just want to do the due diligence and like check, since it's been a year, and make sure there's no like obvious biological things going on that I need to like assess that why this isn't happening. And she was like, okay, well, I had just gotten my period. I think I forgot what it was. It was something like that. I was in the wrong part of my cycle, and she wanted me to do this like thing where you inject dye into your fallopian tubes, to just make sure there's no scar tissue there that's like blocking it, which is super common, even though I've never had like any operations on them. I don't know, but apparently it's a thing. So she was telling me this thing. She's like, but you have to do it on like the 5th day of your cycle. It's like a very specific thing. So I was like, okay, that had already passed. So I had to wait until the next month. And I'm a very like crunchy person, and very nervous of like all sorts of things. Like I'm not like, you know, not obviously I was going to see an OB and do all the tests and stuff like that. So I'm not like anti doing that. My husband is a surgeon. But I'm just scared. I don't like that stuff. And I felt really icky about, even though everybody told me this dye was like 100% fine or whatnot, I'm like, oh, it's such an intimate part to like put dye in, right? It's just like a deeply intimate part. So I got in my car, and I like started talking to my spirit baby, and I was like, listen, I know I've been like in and out, and I've been scared, and I know that you're not sure if I want, but I hope that after everything we just did, you know that I am ready for you. And I had the feeling that he was going to come in the next like 3-4 months. And I was like, I have the feeling that you're planning on the next 3-4 months. And I just like to put in a plea that if you're thinking of coming in the next like few months, if it's like that close, if you could just come now and avoid mom having to do this test that she really doesn't want to do, that feels really unpleasant, that she's really scared about, I would just so appreciate that. I would just so appreciate that, because I'd hate to like have to do this and then, you know, whatever. And And the next month, I couldn't get the test because I was pregnant. And the day that was supposed to be my test was actually my first ultrasound. And it was very early on in the pregnancy. So they were like, don't get your hopes up. They only allowed the ultrasound because I already had the appointment for the other thing. And so they're like, since you already have the appointment, we'll humor you, but you can't get freaked out because you don't usually hear a heartbeat this early. And we heard his heartbeat. And it was just like, so that was like one of the things where I really did, it was more of like it was a process, right? It was like, that was one of the times where, I've had things that kind of seemingly fell out of the blue, but that definitely was a process, and I worked through my fears, and I followed my intuition as far as like getting clear on opening up the space and doing my due diligence, while simultaneously doing my earthly due diligence and making sure I was doing all the right things on that way too. And I really felt like, yeah, between like whatever, magic I moved in Glastonbury and like showed up to really be like, okay, I'm like fully on board doing this. And then that last little thing, I think, just tipped it over the edge.
Oh, absolutely love that. And I feel like that's such a relevant story on so many levels, whether, you're a mom or you've just birthed something into existence, because I feel like it's such a great example that even after all of the years of doing this work, you recognize that you are blocking yourself, and that we always are constantly releasing, growing, expanding, releasing, growing, expanding. It's like this beautiful cycle. It goes back to the beginning of the episode. And the fact that you recognize that and were able to do the deep work to release it. What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, I feel like it's like we're never not growing, right? And the whole purpose of our desires, I think, is really like Earth is a school. So, like, we have these desires, we chase these desires because of the person we'll become on the way to the desire, right? Like, I don't really believe the universe really cares about the outcome of a lot of some of the things that we want, right? It certainly doesn't care like how big your house is or how fancy your car is or any of that. I know that for sure. But like, but I think we have these human earthly desires because of the healing that we do on the way to them, right? It's like you're not going to be the same person that you were on the other side, and it's not, well, maybe with children it is because of the actual thing, but like also the process of it with every level, every like new desire and new stage brings with it its own things for us to be able to like heal and unpeel and unwind and learn things from. And I think the one of the things that I always say when people are like, how are you such a good manifester or whatnot, I think it's just because I've learned to enjoy that part. Like, I enjoy that part equally, and I see it as, you know, whenever there's a new desire that arises, and like, gosh, I think we'll have them until we pass, right? Like, it's just part of it, right? There's always going to be something. And it's like, great. So then what's coming up for me around this? Like, what wants to be seen? What wants to be released? What wants to be healed? What's the assignment?
I love that. I love that. I truly firmly believe that we are co-creating with the universe every single day of every single minute. And it's really not attaching to any identity, not attaching to any version of yourself, just allowing them all to integrate together, and knowing that, your mind is a true super mind. And we can really be such it can be such an asset to our lives when we train it and get it in the flow of the universe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it all gets to be fun, it all gets to be like this life that we have. We chose this incarnation on earth to be here because of the different experiences we get to have here, and our unique things, the things that we want, as like deep or frivolous as they could be, are all part of that journey and are all valid and are all part of that experience. And I think there's such a freedom and a flow in when we just like allow, right? And we're like, oh wow, I want this thing. Okay. It feels like my soul wants it. It feels like I'm connecting to that. Okay, well, if the only reason I don't have it is because of me, what could that be? Right? Where does that want me to go? And the more that we, unravel some of that, and I think, there's just all these different ways to do it, which is like the fun of like the work, right? Is that there's like, I literally just said this to like a client earlier today. It's like, we were talking about all the different versions of meditations, right? And I'm like, all roads lead to Rome, but like you're meant to use the path that feels activating right now, right? That feels intriguing right now. And there's a reason you're attracted to that. And that's how I feel like, whether that is like your spiritual practice and how you want to go about that, or it's your manifestation practice, or it's the thing you want, it's all ultimately for that like highest purpose. And we get to kind of choose our own adventure here while we have it, which is, I think, just to, again, like go back to the whole like grief mortality thing, is like, I think when you have someone in your life that like you either lose or has like faced death, or you've danced with death yourself in some way, you just have this awareness of, I'm not going to like wait for some like outside of me thing to happen to enjoy life, because there's so much to enjoy right now. And it doesn't mean I can't have ambitions or goals or whatnot, but I think it's very sobering when you think about it. Like, and I probably have like a little bit of a darker, I don't know, dark, but like interesting thought. But sometimes I do think, well, if this is my last week on earth, like, how do I want to spend it? And it's not in like, I don't think it's my last week on earth, or like, whatnot, and not in like a, a cataclysmic way, but also it's like, oh, I'm not willing. There's a difference between like, I'm not willing to just like not enjoy today. Even when I was a waitress for a while, like when I was starting, after college, when I was acting, right? And I hated waiting tables. Like, it wasn't like enjoyable, like barista or bookshop kind of thing. Like, I really didn't like it. But I was like, I'm not gonna, what? I'm just gonna like not be happy? No. How do I like make this fun? How do I enjoy this? How do I like choose that like this gets to be an adventure too? And I think when we start living in that way, we start kind of just seeing the infinite possibilities of what can happen for our life and how magical it could really get.
I love that, because I think it's like when you've experienced any type of grief and or loss, or like you said, faced potential death yourself, like mediocre is never an answer, and it's no longer acceptable. So it's got to be like that hell yes energy, and you're not going to do anything because you feel like you should do it. It's going to be aligned with you.
That's the hugest thing, right? Is like really just getting all the shoulds away, and like
Yes.
looking at your life and being like, what am I doing because I feel like I should?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what do I want to do? Like, what do I actually want to do? And it's like, it's those silly things, but then it goes down. It like goes down to like, I heard this the other day. I was listening to some like astrology podcast, and one of the girls was saying, there was like two girls, and one was like, the devil's in the details. And I loved it because the same thought that popped into my head is this, the other woman was talking. She was like, yeah, but so are the angels, right? Um, and it's like, yeah, the angel's in the details. So I'm like, yeah, if if it's going to make you happy to, wake up in the morning and like have a cup of coffee while you sit on your deck, like give yourself those 15 minutes to do it, right? Like sometimes it's like the silliest little small things that our brain is just like, you shouldn't do that. You gotta go, like da 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 da, right? And you're like, what? No. That's where so much of the magic is, where we stop thinking like, the world is going to tell us a lot of things that we should do, like work-wise, like how we should live our lives, all these things. And it's like, that's, the reclamation of like coming back into our intuition and saying like, what do I actually feel guided to do? What's really aligned with me? Because then when we start taking out all of that stuff from our lives, what we have left is like the stuff we love. And then that's like the space in which what, whatever it is that we're calling in that we want to manifest is happy to fill. It wants to fill because it's like, great, more of this, more of this.
Yeah. When I feel like too that if you've experienced loss, you know that oftentimes the most important, the biggest memories that mean the most to you are the simplest things. Like it could be something that was total chaos, like a complete nightmare at the time, but like you look back on it with such reverence after the person passes. So I feel like that anchors you into those simple moments and how important those simple moments are in life.
Oh, 1,000. Like, I think, from like two of my greatest losses, when I look back on them, you know, one of my regrets, I would say, regrets and learnings from that was seeing the times where I prioritized my work. And, looking at that again as like something of like the shoulds of society, right? Where it's like we're very much, and especially in this like social media, like centric business era, whatever, like we feel like this like praise from that level of success or from like having the material things or having all this stuff. But then it's just also like very humbling at the end of the day, like one of the things I'll just say that I had this like opportunity for this like cool speaking engagement in LA, and my grandma was like, oh no, go do that, it's fine, like I'm fine, don't worry about it, right? And I replay that like moment all the time, how much I wish I just fucking said no. Sorry for cursing. Like I
No.
think all the time, like I wish I would have just said no. I wish I would have said like, no, I had plans with my grandma, right? Because I didn't know that like the pandemic was going to happen in a month and then I wouldn't get to see her, you know? I didn't know. And I go back all the time that was so not worth it, you know? I think about like with my dog who just passed away. I got like hacked on Facebook the same day. And I didn't know. Like I knew he was sick and he was with me all day and he was like off and on, right? But if I had really known, I would have just been like, take all my Facebook, whatever. Like, I would have just ignored everybody that day and just laid with him. And it is like those moments that, like, when you look back, like you said, Lindsay, it's like these small moments. It's like moments that I have. Like, I remember, like, I would always just read with me and my dog would cuddle on the couch and I would just read, right? And that would be like my unwinding after dinner, kind of. And I look back and like those are like the little moments, right? Those are like the cozy moments that like I chose when I was not doing anything except for, having that moment, or, with my grandma, like times when, yeah, we'd just be like, whatever, like sitting on the couch watching like soap operas that she liked together or something, It's like those kind of like mundane moments with like people that you care about. And, I think they just kind of help put everything into right balance. And it's not that like you can't be successful or you can't like do big things in the world or any of that jazz. But I do think it puts things a little bit into more right relationship, and then circles back to kind of what we were talking about in the beginning of like, we sometimes think that like we need this like big manifestation, this like big juicy like attractive thing to happen. One of my close friends is really wants to find her person and get married, and she's like at that stage of her life. And I remember she was talking to me about it because it's something, I've coached a lot of clients on, and I'm always trying to help her. It's a little harder to help friends, but one of the things that I told her was like, really savor like your, like some of the moments that are unique to this season, right? I was like, savor the moments where you literally look like a gremlin eating takeout, watching Netflix, and there's like no one around, right? Like, savor these moments where, like, that are just like, savor the moments when, I mean, I still have sleepover parties with some of my girlfriends, so it doesn't have to change. But, like, you know, savor those moments where, you know, like a girlfriend stops by, and again, like, you're just like, do your thing, and there's no one you have to tell, and there's no one you have to check in with, and there's no one that you have to be like, oh, honey, like, we're gonna do our, you know, tarot cards and, you know, like, whatever. It's not like he's gonna say no, but there is a nice energy of just being like, you're in your own space, you know, and like trying to like call upon these like kind of unique fun moments, because it's like when you enter, even if it's not death, right, but when you enter like a new season, we also grieve the last season,
Right.
right? Doesn't mean I like, my son is like amazing, he's like so incredible, it's like, but there also is like grieving for like the time before him and like these different moments that I had in that season. And I think sometimes we're just like, when we get into that space, we're just like so focused on
The
just this
next thing.
one big thing that we forget like all of the joy of this season. And the ironic thing is that when you tune into the joy of the current season, then you manifest the next season so much faster. When you tune it, when you start having fun in like what's going on right now, then the next thing comes so much faster. And I look back and I remember telling some of my younger clients, like, I remember, now I look back and I remember being in my early 20s and like, you know, just making like rent and expenses every month and being so excited for that. And, you know, and just, there are so many, like when I look back at that season and like, you know, having like friends over and having us like all like make some sort of like bean and rice and like whatever cheap meal we could like split together. Like there were so many precious moments of that season, right? And like, yes, now is it really nice that like me and my friends like can go to lunch at like the Polo Club in Beverly Hills and whatnot? Yeah, but you know what? It's a different kind of nice. It's a
Yeah.
different kind of nice. And they're both equally, like when I look back in my memories, they're both equally amazing. And there's something that's so special about like us all coming together and we like we're just trying to figure it out and like, you know, had two pennies to rub together and like making it work and like hustling, and that like experience and what that was like. And there was something special about, you know, being in a nice place together and getting to go on like, oh, it's so and so's birthday, we're all going to go to the Bahamas and rent a villa. That's great too. And I think sometimes when we're in one era, we think the other era is like so much better, but it's not really. It's just different. It's just like a different experience. And you get to have both and you get to experience them all. But enjoying the era you're in, I think there's like a big misconception that we have to be unhappy. We have to say that, like, oh, well, going on a camping trip with a couple of friends is not the same as, we know, we really want to be like, you know, in Saint Tropez at a 5-star resort and like da da da. And it's like, guess what? They're not in competition. Like, they both have like, you know, their greatness and their fun. And I think the more that we start looking at that, like, these are all like just tastes of the earth experience platter, then the more you're likely to taste all of them. And then you taste, you know, some of the ones that you think you held on such a high, you know, platform for whatever, and you're like, yeah, they're great, happy to have them, like super awesome. And also those other moments were also really great too, and they actually, you know, are you know, equal. Like you can have the joy in, you know, now looking back, like all of us have stories of like the joy of like the come up when we were just getting our businesses going, we were just figuring it out, when we just, wrote that first book proposal or had that first book launch or whatnot. And it's just like when you're married and you look back at dating and you're like, oh my God, that was such a hot mess, but it was so fun, right? Like, I was like, you can laugh at all those stories and see them that like, that was still so enjoyable too. I tell people that all the time. Like, I think it was for me, the like getting married was just because I love dating so much. Dating was so fun. And I didn't care. Like, I was like, wow, I'm having such a good time with you. And I could know 100% that you're not my husband. And maybe I don't even want to see you a second time. But this is so interesting, And I love that I'm getting to hear a little bit about you and like whatnot. And maybe if you're cute, I'll kiss you. And maybe if not, whatever. But like, we get to approach everything like that. And then I think when we approach the things like that more, we're holding it loosely. The universe doesn't forget about our deep desires in our heart. It doesn't forget about the thing you really, really want, that you're feeling pulled to, that's meant for you. It helps it happen a lot faster because you're not like pushing it away.
I love that, which takes us back to the very beginning with the divine feminine. Do you mind sharing with people how they can find you? I know everybody that listens to this episode is definitely going to want to check out your work, and having witnessed your work, it's beautiful. So can you share with us where to find you?
Aw, thanks so much. Yeah, you can find me. My website is CassandraBodzak.com, just my name. My Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, all under that same name, Cassandra Bodzak. And all of my books, you can find them wherever books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target. And what else was I going to say? I also, like I said, I have a lot of, I'm like, did I see this in another session today? I don't know. Sorry. But I have a lot of free meditations and tools and different things like that on my YouTube channel, which is Cassandra Bodzak TV. So if you're like, I'd love to check out, one of her guided meditations, there's a ton for free on there. And I also have a free meditation bundle that we can give you a link to, or you can find on my website if not as well, if you want like to get started on kind of opening that space and calling in the guidance for what you want to manifest. And I also have a podcast of my own called You With Intention, where you can listen to that wherever you listen to your podcasts.
It's so good. And I would say sign up for her newsletter, because she always has great freebies and lets you know about things going on in the community. So your newsletter is really good.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, it's on Substack. So you can find it under my name. Thanks for reminding me.
Well, thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
If today's words stirred something in you, that's no coincidence. Your soul is speaking and it's ready to be heard. If you resonated with today's episode, Spirit is cheering you on, encouraging you. Start choosing yourself again. Start saying yes to your healing and join our sacred community over at www.thesoulrevival.com.
Because healing is better when we do it together. If you love this episode, be sure to hit follow, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to return to their soul self. Thank you, Aligned Souls.